Thank you.
Tonight, we've got a wonderful show in store for you today, the last of the 3 weeks, finally, to round out Blast Overtime. We've got the Analyst Desk joining us, host Semmler, as well as Thorin and Spunj, and me and Connor to come in at the end to do our CS Money Shot Style segment. And we're going to have that as well as a discussion about the predictions that were made at the beginning of the season. Stay tuned to Blast Overtime. How do we feel about the song there for Blast Overtime?
Pretty good.
It's not bad.
Lo-fi chill hop.
Yeah,
that's
lo-fi
the genre,
chill
I
hop
believe.
to study to, right?
Exactly.
On
All
repeat on
generated
YouTube.
by algorithm.
Yeah, they know exactly the notes to hit to keep us interested. Before we get crazy, I mean, we already know who's here. Everybody's familiar with this whole desk. We've got a lot of pointed analysts here who have a lot of opinions. And so to make sure we keep our discussions focused, we've got a video from before these 3 weeks began where we had our analysts give some bold predictions about the teams that were coming into this tournament. And we saw how hard it was to make predictions as the tournament went on with the boot camps and the different matchups. Well, now we'll get to see what they said and how well they predicted the outcome of those teams. Let's take a look.
Do you think this is one where I've got to give the context so it's going to actually sound like it's not that crazy a prediction? So I actually personally think that FaZe Clan must love Blast Pro Series, the tournament series last year, not Blast Premier. And that's the problem, is they might think this is Blast Pro Series, and they were loving where if they had a good day in the best of ones, they could get to a final, they got an IP in one of those finals, like they could get lucky with the other team making the final. And if you look over the year, most of their best results came at Blast actually. So personally, I've always thought that lineup actually doesn't have the fundamentals to be a really top team. They just have some good fraggers. So they hope for like just a good streak, a roll of the dice as it were. So I think now that it's all best of threes in the Blast Premier, I think that's actually going to be the undoing of them. So even though I do think the group they're in, they probably should get out of, I think whatever, I think is it 8 teams make it to the finals? I think it's 8, right? If it's 8 teams make it to the finals, they're coming 8th. There you go.
One prediction that I'm willing to make and that I will stand by is that G2 will come through second in their group. I'm not going to say that they're going to beat EG. I'm not going to say that they're going to take the first spot. But I think they've got it in them to take down 100 Thieves and OG. OG, fine. I think they take OG any day of the week, no problem. But I think they can take 100 Thieves. I think they can go for a big upset there and that they can actually progress forward. I think their CS is interesting. They've still got Kenny. Kenny seems like he's coming back into form. He's had a bit of time now as well. So you have to remember that Kenny was also a god of CS, and you can say that. We have to be careful sometimes with the terminology in terms of who actually gets god status, but Kenny was a god. So he's always got that in him. And if Kenny starts even approaching like even semi-deity, like Hercules kind of level, teams are going to be in trouble. So I think G2 are going to be a team that upsets in the third group and are going to make things pretty interesting. Yeah.
Na'Vi are going to be an actual challenger this time around. There's no Guardian there. I think Perfecto is going to fit, and they're going to be playing some fantastic Counter-Strike. So I think Na'Vi are going to get through the group in one of the top 2 positions.
What do you mind that wrong?
I made some good predictions.
Generally speaking, you do make some good predictions. I'm mostly surprised by how pinpoint the predictions from Semmler was incredibly on point, very detailed. There's a long response. I think you nailed almost every single part of that.
Even had them beating 100 Thieves.
Yeah, Semmler, it's like you didn't leave us for 2 years to catch Overwatch League.
2 rounds. What's that?
It's like you didn't leave us for 2 years to catch Overwatch League.
It's all the same thing anyway.
You have to understand, when he finished watching Overwatch League, he was like, right, that's work done, through the briefcase. When he was watching CS, obviously.
What I like about your prediction, Duncan, is that, like with Blast, you've played the long game.
Exactly.
We have to wait until we get to the next stage to see what phase
As long as they come
off.
8th, like 4 months from now, I'm fine. Problem solved. Yeah.
Wow. And you also had a, you also
mine
nailed
was
it.
short because I jumped in after these two. I was the third guy, and they were like, listen, mate, we only got about 5 minutes left, so you need to blast through these. So mine were quick. But the Na'Vi one,
How did you realize that Na'Vi were going to look so much better on day 2 than day 1?
Well, see, the thing is, analysis, you can look at the Counter-Strike, but what actually happened was, I'm in people's DMs. I'm finding out who's good in practice. So I'm like getting a little bit of that groundswell going. Apparently Na'Vi was one of the better teams in practice, right? So I based my analysis literally on prac results, which you should never do.
Yeah.
And now bizarrely, he's dating a player from Team Liquid.
There you go.
So the trouble with the analysis is that
That was a slow burner, okay?
The trouble-
Keep up.
the real trouble with the prediction element, as we found with Thorin, was that you look at FaZe, and based on everything we learned last year, you could say a number of things that would have not been true. Sure. We would have found out they would have been completely wrong, but it's so hard to know exactly how that lined up. A huge element of this discussion revolves around that time off, whether it was a boot camp or just a vacation, into a lot of time where they didn't play any matches, whether it was online or otherwise. I ended up picking OG yesterday just because they had played a LAN, and it seemed like that was a recurring theme where the team had played.
A good narrative predictor. I'll even say as well, within the first game of this Blast Premier where FaZe was playing against NIP, I immediately knew there was a chance my prediction could be wrong, actually, because what's awesome is we get to hear the comms of the teams, and you could hear, even from the CT comms, that like Cold Zero was giving all this input. Like as a team, they were way better than just like the guys who just fragged last year, like I said. So I'm happy to be wrong if it's a really good team coming out and playing.
Yeah. Anything to say about like the FaZe? I feel like the FaZe we saw here at the Premier is a FaZe that could win a major. Actually, the FaZe that we expected to win a major, or the team we expected from last year. Is that too high of expectation?
The reason they look good is because not only were the individuals performing well, right? And we haven't said that about a lot of them in a long time. It's just been one guy shows up and then maybe they have a good map here or there. But there's a lot more players showing up, as well as the 2IC, Cold Zero chipping, and they even had strategies, which seems like a ridiculous thing to be pointing out. Everyone should have strategies, but they had setups, they were well prepared, they had like flashes for each other. That looked good. But all of this stuff, unfortunately, I think FaZe are going to be a good team this year, but unfortunately, I think we're getting baited into so much stuff right now. If I go forward for the rest of the year and base all of my analysis off of these 3 weeks of CS, and I go, oh yeah, OG are going to be sick, G2 are going to be great, EG are going to suck, 100 Thieves are going to suck. I think I might be jumping the gun a little bit, right? Because this whole thing is a bigger discussion about a preseason, or exactly like you said, you based your analysis of OG off of them actually playing a LAN. So we're just in the ramping up phase, which scares me.
I would be surprised if you went back, if in CS history there was ever a period where top teams had more than a month off ever.
It's too much time.
That's the whole reason why the play break's 3 weeks. Like that was hard to get in the calendar. So the idea that like, what was the crazy one for some team? Wasn't it 100 Thieves had
71
days? There we go.
Yeah, 71 days. I think
Over 2 months without one LAN game is so alien. So you've never really seen that before in Counter-Strike.
We were talking about the element of like, well, you can be a Strawless, but if you're a Strawless, you can no longer practice versus bots. Like you can practice versus bots to improve to a point, but for a Strawless, the only thing that makes a difference between them and their competition is how well they play on LAN. So you've got to have the audience, you've got to have the top teams, and there's no replicating those circumstances. So in terms of a break, we all want to break, obviously. Players and us, we take the same time to go on vacation. And if it's a month off or if it's 2 months off, you could still have LAN jitters when you come back. Like how long is too long?
I don't think there is such a thing as too long. I think we could have 2, 3, 4 months break. It's just about getting used to it from a team. Like we said, we've never had those kinds of breaks before. The players don't know how to. The players don't know how to maintain their skill throughout a long period. How to ramp up again, right? You can have 2, 3 weeks off where you don't even touch CS, don't touch a PC, so long as you have the appropriate time to ramp back up into the game and then ramp up. It's like training for anything like weightlifting or something like that. You're not going to be slamming weights the entire time all year long. You're going to be ups and downs when you want to peak at a certain point.
UFC would be a good example. You have months and months where you don't fight. You don't just train hard every day, but at the same time, you don't train 2 days before the event. You got to peak, haven't you? You got to have your whole team with you.
I think there is an opportunity where, I think we're moving into that period now where perhaps there's stability enough in the scene where we're narrowing down the TOs, where we could have 2 months here or even 3 months in the middle of the year where players we are allowed to have an extended break period. Gives us time to build content, to build narratives going into the second half of the year, allows for suspense to build up, and then we get to see our team's going to adapt to that. I think this is a case of just teams not knowing. They didn't know what to expect. Do we have to come back 2 weeks ahead, 1 week ahead, 3 weeks ahead? Like, do we need a LAN before, or do we not need a LAN? Like, the teams are still figuring it out. They don't know what's going on.
And I think it's a good example of some of the guys that we saw succeed here who otherwise we wouldn't have. Complexity has been here at the hotel practicing for ages. We had OG play the ICE event just like Na'Vi. Na'Vi had a hiccup on day 1, but that was literally the day after an event ended, right? Yeah, FaZe, I think FaZe is really one of those only outliers that kind of came into this event
Yeah.
light years above where we may have expected.
And that's because they had to kick the year off a little bit earlier. Yeah. Obviously, we had Janko being very vocal on social media about needing to come back from the break to play that Katowice qualifier, which they swept, right? They did it very quickly. But then for them, there was no point going back on another break. They may as well have just continued, right? So all the teams who started the year with officials earlier, G2 is another one, they qualified for Katowice.
Exactly, Katowice.
They all looked like as the better team. So I think the one that is they got lucky is Liquid, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't even come over and practice.
That got them through. They would have been third otherwise.
Exactly, and for them, they didn't even come over and prac in Europe, right? 100 Thieves. If we're going to look at that opening game that they played, they put in a lot of practice, and the thing that lost them was bad decisions in post-plant situations and Jacob shitting the bed, right? So those two factors right there is probably, you could have had a 3-map series against G2 to kick things off. But then the second day against EG, that train game is inexcusable, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like a lot of the teams that had to shake off, the ring rust, they did it by day 2, and they looked more like themselves. They just put themselves in a worse position. 100 Thieves, though, they didn't really recover.
I'll even say as well, like I think probably the missed storyline in this tournament was the Astralis week, because remember, it's only Simple going absolutely supernova that won Na'Vi those last 2 maps. In another world where Astralis just edges that series, I wouldn't have been surprised if in the next day they come back a bit stronger, then on the final day they probably win the whole group.
One of the biggest comebacks that we saw on Inferno.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
And they were only in that game because of Simple, and then the rest of the team stepped up to close out Inferno, right? I think one of the most not underrated, maybe one of the things that we haven't credited to too much of the success of Astralis that maybe we should start doing going forward is how prepared they have been able to be in the past for other teams. Because when you're taking more events off or you're picking and choosing your events, you're doing a lot of prep work. Coming into this, they were going into the dark against a lot of these names, right? So you're going into the dark against the Na'Vi, who's only just added Perfecto and played 11 maps of Counter-Strike or something before this tournament. So when you think about that, they don't have that ability to go, oh, let's look at these tendencies, because Na'Vi were literally changing things up while they were in the server. So I think something in the past that Astralis have done the best out of all teams is preparation, and something they couldn't do in this one because it was the first tournament of the year was preparation, right? So I think that's a factor which is going to weigh on them as a team. But now, as we ramp up into the year, it shouldn't affect them the same way.
I mean, it demands a tremendous amount of work to stay at the top as well.
Yes.
You're going to be the most studied team. So you're going into the dark against teams you don't even know what they're going to throw at
on
you.
the dartboard.
And they've got you mapped out for months ahead of time because they've been studying you all year long, because everybody's trying to unpack what the hell Astralis they're doing on the server.
That's also, another angle that
Astralis not catching
it. It wasn't just us who got the predictions wrong. The seeding for the tournament was done by the teams. They picked it all, and yet they're the ones who put Complexity and OG at the bottom. They had I think G4 was maybe 5th from the bottom or something. Like, they had these teams really low down. So just from practice, it means these teams probably weren't doing some of those things until they got here.
Yeah. Now we have. Because the series, of course, had to go 3 maps because of OG had to bring a 16-14. We're getting close to tear down territory for the set. I want to ask you, before we round out the segment, who is the most impressive team of these 3 weeks that we've seen so far?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
To help out, I'll go ahead and say first, I think G2 was my #1 favorite. Most consistent all 3 days, looked better than I thought they would do coming out of the last year, and of course, topped the group.
Yeah, I'll throw FaZe out there as well. I think that's just kind of out of the blue. Again, I would have agreed with everything I had saw, Duncan, with your kind of bold prediction there, where it's like last year they limped through, and any accomplishments just kind of seemed like flukes or a product of the Blast format. So
for me, it'd be Complexity, because we had no expectations for that team.
And they worked those 2 games as well, yeah.
Literally 0 expectations for that team. My victory for the likes of Complexity and OG was if they were competitive in any of the maps, that was a victory for them in my books. So they
been dreaming about it for a long time.
Yeah, so Complexity, I think, just with the type of Counter-Strike we saw as well.
I just gotta go. I gotta give a shout out. No, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Simple. Feels like he's actually got a team for once. Poor guy. He's been out in the woods for years, having to lug, boulders up hills and just try and carry everything in sight. And now it looks like he's actually got some teammates that can help him out. A few of those maps, he was bottom fragging. Still didn't matter. His team were still clutching. His team were still winning rounds. So if you put a player like Simple, where he doesn't need to just hard carry every single freaking round, and he can actually have some support, maybe this is a team that can actually start winning some titles. Na'Vi, for once, a CIS team that can go in there and maybe consistently win, not just a fluke here and there.
I think I would agree with Scrawny. I will say FaZe, because if you look at the context, they beat Team Liquid not just twice, they 2-0'd them both times. Unless you're Astralis, you don't 2-0 Team Liquid. Like they're a pretty top-notch team. So sure, you can definitely make excuses. Team Liquid didn't look as good. They didn't look like they came in off the break very well. But just the name value alone, that was the number 2 team of the year.
Yeah.
You beat them twice.
Yeah, a lot of good picks. It's good to have some variety here. And I just want to say thank you guys for a great desk. I think we killed it all 3 weeks. And that's going to be it for this segment. So you guys can take off whenever you want. We'll catch up with you for drinks at the hotel, maybe a couple of waters or a couple of vodkas.
On the waters.
Whatever you want to do.
You know, you have to balance yourself out if you're doing the other extracurricular activities, right, Chad?
Yeah, I got to go to the gym.
So anyway.
The gym, okay.
All right, you're just drinking water for real, right? My bad.
Okay, well, thanks
guys.
so much, guys. Yeah, that's going to be it. And we're going to take a look now at our shot style segment powered by CS Money, where Connor is going to take a look at a couple of very important inventories.
That's right, Shot Style brought to you by CS Money. You know, it's the motto. You gotta look good if you wanna play good. And again, there's a lot of those skin critics out there. You guys, take a deep breath, take a back seat, and chill for a moment, because there are skin fanatics out there, Launders. It's a part of Counter-Strike. And first and foremost, we're gonna take a quick look at the inventory of nobody other than Tarek.
Tarek.
Evil geniuses coming in this weekend, not accomplishing what they would want. They have been relegated to the showdown. It's going to be an exciting event, but it's going to be a tough event. They join the likes of Vitality and Astralis down there, crazy stuff. But enough about Counter-Strike, let's talk skins. Hand wrap Slaughter. I mean, you see the look here. It's obvious. Red and black, right? From the depths comes Tarek. Not just any Crimson Web, but also a bayonet Crimson Web. I think it gets, it's kind of an underrated knife. We talk about the butterfly in the sense that
it was one of the first knives to come out.
Yeah, it has that flipping, spinning effect, but the bayonet's got that really cool spin over the back of the hand. So I'm just a personal fan. The Krieg, the Converter, the Uncharted AK, it all blends quite nicely here, but never more. We also have other inventories to look at, not just Tarek on the menu tonight.
Who else is it then?
Who else?
Yeah.
Let's bring it up, Mohan.
Okay, let's find out. Let's get the graphic and see.
Boom. It's going to be Valda. OG taking it to the very end. 30-round benders or overtime more every single map 3 of their series this weekend. He, just like Tarek, is going to be rocking those red hand wraps covered in the blood of his victims or something gory like that. But he also has a black and red knife to go with it. It's not the flipping of the bayonet, but the spinning of the butterfly. You know, it's these guys with the short attention spans, I'm telling you.
The ADD players.
I want to take a second to appreciate a pair of dual Berettas that we don't see too often. This is from the new Inferno collection.
I've never seen those at all.
Yeah, the twin turbos. You know, we talk about Beretta players. There's not many of them out there. And I don't think Valda falls in that category. But if ever, he decides to wield those 2 guns at the same time,
that's the skin he's got equipped.
he's going to look good doing it. There's something on this list that I think deserves a closer look, though.
Speak your mind.
That's that M4A4, the Emperor. Beautiful skin. It's got that gold trim.
It's very regal.
It's not playing off of the red like the rest of his inventory, but he contrasts it to the complete opposite stark blue. You know, we've looked consistently at that AK-47 Empress throughout this segment, and well, this is the male counterpart, the M4A4 Emperor. If you guys love skins, well, this is the segment for you.
Yeah.
If you don't, plug your ears and move along.
Well, you might just want to listen to the sweet sounds of Connor's voice as he describes these skins to you.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's the last segment of Shot Style, brought to you by CS Money. Whoa!
Oh my God,
What
chicken
is
flies
this?
into the set.
Oh my God, it comes out of nowhere.
So Connor, it's been 3 amazing weeks here at Blast. We've done so much when it comes to the content, to the casting, to seeing different teams come in and out. We loved interacting with you guys at home and on Twitter, and being able to take this journey on with you and be very close to the experience. Thank you to everybody who came into the studio to watch the games. Thank you for everybody at home that tuned in. And I hope we just created a good experience for you to enjoy, because we tried our damnedest to make sure every part of the broadcast was great. And that comes to us as talent, as casters, Anders, Moses, Spunj, Thorin, Semmler, Shocks, who came in, and all of the production staff. Everybody's working as hard as it looks. And so I just want to say thank you. And I'm going to give Connor the floor here to send it off.
It's really the big thanks to everybody at Blast that I think makes this all possible. I think the bar for Counter-Strike has been set really high at the start of 2020. And so all of you guys too, the viewers, none of us are here if it's not for you. So remember that you have impact in this world of Counter-Strike. It exists because of you. And remember that right now, we have more concurrent players on Counter-Strike Go than ever before. 2020 could be one of the biggest years for CS, and it all depends on people like you guys and people like us. So let's combine and let's work together to make what is going to be a fantastic year of Counter-Strike. I think that's all we can really say, Mohan. We're done here at Blast. 3 incredible weeks of Counter-Strike. But what's more important is we're not even at the end of February. There are 10 more months to go, and I just can't wait.
Say it louder for the people in the back. No, cheers to that, Connor. It's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you so much to everyone at Blast and everyone at home. That's it from us on Overtime. That is the final segment of the final of the 3 weeks of the spring series. We'll see you at the showdown, and until then, keep it locked. Take care, everybody. Good night.